says باب ما جاء في صلاة الكسوف. He says حدثنا محمد بن يحيى. So I'm not particularly interested in who this person is. Why? Because there's probably a lot of people who narrate this hadith. So generally speaking, the sheikh of the author of one of the 6 books, or that person from that tabaqah, from that generation, is not particularly interesting. They're probably usually all thiqat. They're all really good because there's just tons of them, right? So it's not particularly very interesting, right? So here it says قال حدثنا مطرف قال قرأت على ابن نافع. Ibn Nafi', this is one of the ashab of Malik, of the Madani, the first generation of Madani Malikis, right? Ibn Nafi'. So you can see him in the tabaqat of the Malikis, right? Mutarrif as well, I think he's of that name. So these are kind of these early Malikis. And Malik himself, right? So you're going to probably find this hadith everywhere, right? This hadith says 252, 252. It's in Muslim, Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, Bukhari. It's everywhere, right? So what you're going to probably find, and I'm not going to bother doing it because it's probably going to find it anyway, is that the madar of the hadith is Malik or Zayd ibn Aslam. So basically, the whole world is traveling to Malik. It's mashhur, mutawatir almost from Malik. Or there'll be, for example, Malik and Ibn Uyayna will be narrating from Zayd ibn Aslam. I don't think I'm not sure if Sufyan, maybe Jawadi here. No, it's not here. But anyway, so basically, so this is the point where these kind of things become academic. They're not academic when it's not widespread, right? So Ammar, you were just in the class now, right? With the Ilal class. Yeah. So here is like this is not a hadith that's gharib. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be Malik and probably somebody else from Zayd ibn Aslam. But imagine if a hadith that should be well known was narrated by some random person. So somebody narrates a hadith that everybody else, that to all these people throughout the world, and narrated from Imam Malik, you're the only person narrating. That's a problem. Even if you're in principle reliable, there's a problem that you're the only person. That's number one. Number two, if this hadith is only known as Mutarrif narrated, and Mutarrif, the only person Mutarrif narrated it from was Ali, was Ibn Nafi', and that's it. So there's no there are no mutaba'at for the hadith. Mutaba'at are what somebody else narrating that hadith from a similar chain at some point. There's nothing else like that, right? Or it's very low down. It's basically Muhammad ibn Yahya and somebody else of his generation narrating from this person, right? That gets a bit more problematic. Okay, so anyway, so this hadith I'm just going to pick this up in, where's the Muwatta right now? I'm going to pick this up in the Muwatta of Imam Malik. So this is the Muwatta of who's this? This is the Muwatta of Ibn Zubayr or something. Another narration, totally different narration. I'm just going to try and find it here, and I just to make the point. Al-Kusuf. Okay, Salaf al-Khuluf 101, page 101. So I'm looking at this hadith. Here we go. Okay, so this is hadith this Muwatta is hadith 525. So it says Abu Mus'ab narrates that Malik said. So I already have somebody else totally different, right? So I already have somebody else here. So I've got Ibn Nafi', I've got Mus'ab, I'm going to find 50 other people. Therefore, these people are not very interesting. I don't really care who they are. It doesn't really matter, right? And that's why, similarly, once you get past Tirmidhi, let's say, for example, there's two, three people narrating from Tirmidhi, I don't really care who they are. Like, it's just not obviously important to find out who they are eventually. But so what's significant with the six books or any famous book is from that point, this book becomes widespread, right? And I don't need to go through the specifics of who these people are, right? Because now mutawatir, right? So this hadith is probably mutawatir, right, from Malik. Wallahu a'lam. Seems like Zayd ibn Aslam is the Madar from Ibn Abbas. Also, something similar is narrated from at least 11 of the Sahaba. There we go. So the content, fantastic, right? Not an issue. So Imam Malik for Zayd ibn Aslam عن عطاء ibn Yasar. So عطاء ibn Yasar is Madani. Okay? But he's narrating from Abdullah ibn Abbas. So there's another Ata ibn Abi Rabah who is Makki. Okay? And there's another Ata, is Ata ibn Sa'ib, there's someone else. But Ata ibn Yasar, this is Madani. Right? He's of the Ruwat of these are the Madani narrators. Okay? عن عبد الله بن عباس قال كسفت الشمس على عهد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فصلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم والناس معه فقام قياما طويلا نحوا مثلا من سورة البقرة. Right? So how long does it take to recite Surah Al-Baqarah? What, that's 2.5 ajza. Takes a long time. ثم ركع ركوعا طويلا ثم رفع فقام قياما طويلا وهو دون القيام الأول ثم ركع ركوعا طويلا وهو دون الركوع الأول. Right? So there's two ruku's, right? So notice the content is off, right? Content is weird. So imagine, for example, Malik was the only person on the face of the earth to know this hadith. That'd be a bit odd, you know? It's kind of odd, right? Or Malik heard this hadith from Zayd ibn Aslam, but never saw anybody in Medina ever do that. He just like, it's odd. Like, I heard this information from Zayd ibn Aslam that sounds a bit weird. You know what I'm saying? But nobody ever did that. So what would you do? Would you do what people do? Or would you follow the hadith? Right? Or what if the hadith says one thing, what the people do something else, but in another city, maybe in Basra, maybe in Kufa, they do it. You know what I'm saying? So it gets a bit more complex. So is the hadith abrogated or something else, right? And notice the words of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, "Man ahya sunnatan umitat." Whoever brings life to a sunnah that has been killed. Doesn't that mean that you might see shadh knowledge here and there? You might see a hadith that nobody seems to act upon, but should be acted upon. So it's actually a very difficult situation, right? As we mentioned before, right? Okay, anyway, ثم رفع فقام قياما طويلا وهو دون القيام الأول ثم ركع ركوعا طويلا وهو دون الركوع الأول ثم سجد. قال ابن يحيى هي لعلهما قال. Who's they? Oh, so Muhammad ibn Yahya narrates it from Mutarrif and Ibn Nafi'. Okay, so حدثنا محمد بن يحيى قال حدثنا مطرف وقرأت على ابن نافع. So Mutarrif told me from Malik. So he has two chains already. I missed the wow there. And Ibn Nafi', but he said specifically, Ibn Nafi' didn't read to me, I read to him, just to be clear. Right? So that's why he's saying لعلهما قال, perhaps they said, where was it? ثم رفع أو لم يقولاه. He's doubting himself. فقام قياما طويلا وهو دون القيام الأول. ثم ركع ركوعا طويلا وهو دون الركوع الأول ثم رفع فقام قياما طويلا وهو دون القيام الأول ثم ركع ركوعا طويلا وهو دون الركوع الأول ثم سجد ثم انصرف وقد تجلت الشمس. قال إن الشمس والقمر آيتان من آيات الله لا يخسفان لموت أحد ولا لحياته فإذا رأيتم ذلك فاذكروا الله قالوا يا رسول الله رأيناك تناولت شيئا في مقامك هذا ثم رأيناك تكعكعت you went back right? Where is it أحجمت وتأخرت إلى وراء كعكع قال رأيت الجنة وأريت أو أريت الجنة رأيت الجنة أو أريت I saw Jannah or I was shown Jannah فتناولت منها عنقودا I got a cluster of dates ولو أخذته لأكلتم منه ما بقيت الدنيا right had I given you the dates as long as the dunya was here you could keep eating that cluster of dates forever ورأيت النار فلم أرك اليوم منظرا قط ورأيت أكثر right so I never saw anything I never saw a منظر like that right? It's really really bad ورأيت أكثر أهلها النساء قالوا بما يا رسول الله قال بكفرهن قيل يكفرن بالله قال يكفرن العشير ويكفرن الإحسان لو أحسنت إلى إحداهن الدهر كله ثم رأت منك شيئا قالت ما رأيت منك خيرا قط right? So may Allah protect us from being women and may Allah protect us from women being like that right? So a very important thing to forget people's blessings forgetting people's blessings upon favors to one is tantamount to forgetting the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right? And also this is a what's it called this is a comfort for men right a comfort for men you know you see that from your wife you say sadaqallah al-azim sadaqa rasul al-kareem right so without being condescending without being rude the way that the man works with his wife is like a parent with a child right so your toddler has forgotten that you warmed up the food for them it's okay right you don't the toddler throws a plate at you don't throw a plate back so when you're working on somebody from a higher level you're going to be more gracious and more patient when you're on the same level of that as them you're going to be right as Tamim al-Balaghuthi says about the Jews he's a Palestinian poet he says لستم بأكفائنا فنكرهكم you're not on our level such that we should hate you right so someone's like oh my god my wife said this like, yeah that's normal that's what a woman will do so why did you even forget that? So don't forget the teachings of the Prophet and remind sisters, be careful of that. Brothers, remember it and chill. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. You're such a loser. Don't know why I ever married you. It's okay. Right? So don't be a loser and get upset. That's the point. Like, oh my God, I can't believe she just said that. Well, believe it. Right? And you know, it's important to be tough enough that you can be like, yeah, it's not a big deal. Right? And he says, أخبرنا الربيع بن سليمان, the scribe of Imam Shafi'i, أن الشافعي أخبرهم قال أخبرنا مالك بهذا الحديث ولم يقل في الموضع الذي شك فيه محمد بن يحيى ثم رفعه. So he's saying, by the way, you know that place where my other narrator said, I think he said, and then that's not in that chain. Right? So that's one of the nice things you can do is when you have a hadith from lots of different chains, you can compare and contrast. So if you want to see that done very skillfully, you see that with Nasa'i. The problem is what is Muslim doing when he does that? So Imam Muslim, you'll see, when even in secondary books, Riyad al-Salihin, whatever, they'll say, وَفِي رِوَايَةٍ لِمُسْلِمٍ, right? And another version. So is Muslim showing the inconsistencies of the different hadiths, or is showing the variation of the different hadiths? Okay, that's a major consideration. Because if Imam Muslim is showing us the inconsistencies of the different narrations, as Nasa'i would do, right? Here's a narration, here's a narration, look the inconsistency. Then it means that not every riwayah in Sahih Muslim is actually Sahih, which is pretty important if you think about it. So is Imam Muslim showing us Sahih hadiths and weak versions of those Sahih hadiths, or is he just showing us variation? Right, that's quite an important question to ask. and not an easy one to answer. Okay. So then he says, قال حدثنا بحر بن نصر عن ابن وهب. Right. So Ibn Wahab, a student of Imam Malik. Right. This is the famous Ibn Wahab. He said, "Were it not for Malik and Layth, I would be lost." You know, I studied hadith so much, I didn't know how to work it out. And he writes from Yunus, and Yunus, as again we just saw in the Ilal, Yunus of the close of the close snit circle of Ibn Shihab. So Yunus, strong narrator from Ibn Shihab az-Zuhri. This is Ibn Shihab az-Zuhri. قال أخبرني عروة بن زبير, right, the nephew of Aisha, and Aisha زوج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, قالت خسفت الشمس في حياة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I looked at this, and they said when Zuhri narrates from Sa'id, sometimes he superimposes Zuhri's commentary. I looked at this, and they said, of this hadith in general. Where is Sa'id here? Oh, this. قال كان يجيء عن سعيد بأشياء ليست من حديث سعيد وضعف أمره. قال لم يكن يعرف حديث وكان يكتب أرى أول كلام فينقطع الكلام فيكون أوله عن سعيد بعضه عن الزهري فيشتبه عليه. About Yunus, can you show me the whole, is that the whole quote about Yunus? I might be mixing Yunus with somebody else. Let's have a look. So notice his Ain. Here, I'm going to show 1 second. Let's look at this 1 second. Maybe I'm mixing up with somebody else. I thought he was one of these awesome. So he's in Ain. He's in all of the 6 books, which is significant. Okay. So anyway. Al-Aili. Okay. كان ابن عمر يقول كتابه صح. قال ابن مهدي وكذا أقول. وقال عبد الله إني نظرت في حديث معمر ويونس يعجبني كأنهما خرجا من مشكاة واحد. قال عبد الرزاق عن المبارك ما رأيت أحدا أروى لزهري من معمر إلا أن يونس أحفظ للمسند وفي رواية إلا يونس فإنه كان كتب على الوجه. So على الوجه in the right way. وقال محمد ابن عوف عن أحمد قال رأيت يونس بن يزيد الأيلي وكان سيء الحفظ. So this is Waki''s position. Okay. وقال محمد ابن إسحاق عن أحمد ما أعلم أحدا أحفظ بحديث زهري من عمر إلا ما كان من يونس إنه كتب كل شيء هناك. Yeah, that doesn't, it seems like that's one opinion. So let's look at these opinions, okay? So he says, إلا أن يونس أحفظ للمسند. وفي رواية إلا يونس فإنه كتب على الوجه, he wrote in the right way. So basically nobody knows nobody knows Zuhri's hadith better than Ma'mar apart from Yunus. Right? So he's really good. وقال محمد بن عوف عن أحمد قال وكيع رأيت يونس بن الأيلي وكان سيء الحفظ. Right? So that's really weird. So this is an anomaly here. That's like what? He wasn't good? So that's odd. وقال حنبل بن إسحاق عن أحمد ما أعلم أحدا أحفظ بحديث زهري من معمر إلا ما كان من يونس فإنه كان كتب كل شيء هناك. So that's good. Right? So basically so far it's just Waki' saying something strange about him. Okay. وقال أثرم قيل لأبي عبد الله فإبراهيم بن سعد قال وأي شيء روى إبراهيم عن الزهري إلا أنه في قلة روايته أقل خطأ من يونس. So So this is useful. So Athram says that it was said to Imam Ahmad, what about Ibrahim ibn Sa'ad? He said he hardly narrates anything from him, but he makes less mistakes than Yunus. So Yunus obviously made some mistakes, but that's not necessarily a big problem. قال وروايته يحمل على قال ورأيته يحمل على يونس. I heard him criticize يحمل عليه, kind of attack him. قال وأنكر عليه وقال كان يجيء عن سعيد بأشياء. Which Sa'id is this?
Ibn Musayyib, I think.
I don't think that's possible.
From الزهد would be my
أشياء
assumption.
ليست من حديث سعيد. Anyway, so that's a tada'if of him, but I don't know which Sa'id this is. Sa'id ibn Musayyib. I don't think it's Sa'id ibn Musayyib. Did he even narrate from Sa'id ibn Musayyib?
No, but Zuhri narrates from him, right?
One second. So here. Okay, كان يجيء عن سعيد بأشياء. He used to narrate some things from Sa'id that weren't of the hadith of Sa'id. It's got nothing to do with Zuhri.
At the end of the sentence.
قال لم يكن يعرف الحديث وكان يكتب أرى أول الكلام فينقطع الكلام يكون أوله عن سعيد وبعضه عن الزهري فيشتبه عليه. Yeah, so it's not what he narrates from Zuhri from Sa'id. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's another Sa'id. I don't know which Sa'id this is. So it is a general, but it's not that it's not saying that ولم يكن يعرف الحديث وكان يكتب أرى أول الكلام فينقطع الكلام فيكون أوله عن سعيد وبعضه عن الزهري فيشتبه عليه. So it basically mix up the hadiths of Sa'id with Zuhri, but I don't know which Sa'id this is. But it is not that he would narrate from Zuhri, from Sa'id and Musayyib, and then mix the two things up. Wallahu alam. Right? So here he mentions specifically, okay, قال أبو عبد الله وأقيل أقل خطأ. So Aqil, I'm mixing him up with Aqil. That's what I'm mixing up. So the Shu'aib and Aqil, that's who I'm mixing up. These are they are the stronger ones. I'm mixing him up with them. That's Aqil. Anyway, so let's have a look at قال أبو زرع الدمشقي سمعت أبا عبد الله أحمد حنبل يقول في حديث يونس عن الزهري منكرات منها عن سالم عن أبيه فيما سقطت السماء العشر. Interesting. So there's a mistake there. He said that this is a mistake. So here this is interesting. Yunus from Zuhri mistaken. قال الميموني سئل أحمد من أثبت في زهري قال معمر قيل في يونس قال روى أحاديث منكرة قال so in general he's a thiqa. Right? قال الدوري. So this is a book in reality, right? This is a book. تاريخ يحيى برواية الدوري. Right? We can get that book. It's a book today, right? That's your list of books to get. أثبت الناس في الزهري مالك ومعمر ويونس. Notice he's good. Right. وعقيل وشعيب وابن عيينة. وقال أبو and so this is the other book. So there's these two books you can get. Duri's narration of Tariq Yahya Ma'in and Darimi. Right, this is the author Sunnah Darimi. قلت لابن يحيى يونس أحب إليك أو أقيل قال يونس. There we go. أين يقع so أين يقع الأوزاعي من يونس? How was he compared? قال يونس أسند عن زهري. Okay, so anyway, yes, yeah, so there are some issues, but I don't think that he's saying that he narrates some things from Zuhri, from Sa'id ibn Musayyab and mixes them up. It's some other Sa'id. Maybe it's Sa'id ibn Jubair. I don't know which Sa'id this is, because he doesn't mention a Sa'id in
Okay.
his shuyukh. Go ahead.
Okay.
Um,
There was a quote, like if you just like look him up on Shamra, there's a quote from Jarh Ta'adil where he says, where is it? يكتب أول الكتاب الزهري عن سعيد وبعده الزهري.
there we go. That's right. So basically, that's going to be Yahid Sa'id. That's going to be Sa'id ibn Musayyab. That's correct.
Yeah, this is فيشتبه عليه.
There we go. But here, the text that we see here, that's not what it's saying. But that's another.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Listen, that's another quote, and that would make sense because otherwise it doesn't make sense that yeah, that would make sense. Okay, great, good job.
I also, how is
Go ahead.
he? Sorry, this is kind of irrelevant, but like مولى معاوية رضي الله عنه.
So basically, maybe he's like the
But then he
grandson.
dies in like 159 Hijri.
Yeah, but he himself is not the freed slave of Muawiyah. He's of
Ah, I see. Okay.
he's of that. He's now Umawi through through being maybe his grandfather, something like that, was owned by a family. Does that make sense?
Yes. بارك الله فيك.
So he's Umawi through Wala, basically. Okay, that was good. Where do we get to? يونس عن ابن شهاب قال أخبرني عروة بن زبير عن عائشة زوج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال خسفت الشمس في حياتي. So now I can compare this. Pretty sure it's here in Muwatta. Well, that was 101, right? So that's the first hadith that Imam Malik has in the chapter. Okay, so I'm looking at Mus'ab's version. So it says Malik from Hisham ibn Urwa. From Aisha. So basically, this is another version. So the chain then merges at Urwa. Yeah, at Urwa. So this is the hadith of Urwa ibn Zubayr so we have two versions then. I've got Zuhri's version and I've got Hisham's version, right? And from Zuhri, you're going to have a bunch of people narrating, and from Hisham, you're going to have some people narrating, right? Okay. So notice how even someone like Malik, he has Zuhri narrating from Urwa ibn Zubayr and Hisham ibn Urwa narrating from Urwa ibn Zubayr. So you can look at their hadiths. You can compare and contrast how they're narrating. It says خسفت الشمس في حياة رسول الله فخرج رسول الله إلى المسجد فقام وكبر وصف الناس وراءه فاقترأ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قراءة طويلة ثم كبر فركع ركوعا طويلا ثم رفع رأسه ثم رفع رأسه قال سمع الله لمن حمد ربنا ولك الحمد ثم قام فاقترأ قراءة right? So iqtara'a, what does that mean? He got into reciting, right? So often often the word ifta'ala can translate quite easily into English with infa'ala and ifta'ala to have the meaning of to get, like in daraba fulan, he got a beating. So it's kind of like active. So you did when you get something, it is active, but it's also passive, right? So it's kind of a passive thing. Iqtara'a. Um, you know, وعظته فاتعظ, right? I gave him some advice, so he took on the advice. Or I gave him some admonition and it sunk in, like it got in with him. So it's like passive in the sense, but it's active but passive. ثم كبر فرفع ركع ركوعا طويلا وهو أدنى من الركوع الأول ثم قال سمع الله لمن حمده ربنا ولك الحمد ثم فعل في الركعة الأخرى مثل ذلك فاستكمل 4 ركعات و4 سجدات وانجلت الشمس أي انجلى, the alif is dropped because of the التقاء ساكنين, وانجلت الشمس قبل أن ينصرف ثم قام فخطب الناس وأثنى على الله بما هو أهله بما يستحقه ثم قال إن الشمس والقمر آيتان من آيات الله لا يخسفان لموت أحد ولا لحياته فإذا رأيتموها فافزعوا إلى الصلاة. Okay, then he says حدثنا هارون بن إسحاق. So just quickly looking at the hadith here, basically exactly the same. Oh no, it's not. It has other sense. So here in the other version, yeah, it's going to mention it here. This one is now the first one in Muwatta Imam Malik. So he says حدثنا is Harun ibn Ishaq حدثنا Abda. I don't know who this is. But basically Hisham, so Abda narrates it from Hisham, and uh, Malik narrates it from Hisham, right? And Hisham ibn Urwa عن أبيه أن عائشة قالت خسفت الشمس على عهد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فأطال القيام جدا ثم ركع فأطال الركوع جدا ثم رفع فأطال القيام وهو دون القيام الأول ثم ركع وهو دون الركوع الأول ثم سجد ثم قام فأطال القيام وهو دون القيام الأول ثم ركع وهو دون الركوع الأول ثم رفع رأسه فقام وهو دون القيام الأول ثم ركع وهو دون الركوع الأول ثم سجد ففزع ففرغ عفوا ففرغ من صلاته وقد جلي عن الشمس, right? فقام فخطب الناس فحمد الله وأثنى عليه ثم قال إن الشمس والقمر آيتان من آيات الله لا ينخسفان لموت أحد ولا لحياته فإذا رأيتم ذلك فصلوا وتصدقوا واذكروا الله ثم قال يا أمة محمد والله ما من أحد أغير من الله أن يزني عبده أو تزني أمته, right? So here the Prophet ﷺ is speaking to his people based on their Semitic tribal slave understanding. You are in my tribe, what you do I take personally, right? If somebody insults you, it's an insult to me. If you behave in a bad way, you shame yourself and you shame me, right? And in your tribe, you have mawali, you have slaves. So if those slaves act inappropriately or are harmed, it hurts you. They're a disgrace to you, and it's it's not just property. So if somebody insults them, they're insulting you, right? If they shame themselves, you feel shamed. So that's this ghayra, right? So there's nobody out of all people, there's nobody. So now you metaphorically then are in the tribe of Allah, in that you are Allah's slave. So when you are harmed, Allah gets angry with the person who harms you and defends you. That's why you say ana Abdullah. But when you shame yourself, you're shaming Allah. Don't do that, right? So you obviously there's a difference in that I'm a slave owner and I own you and you're my tribe. It actually takes away from me, whereas obviously you can't take away from Allah, right? But that's the analogy that's being made here, right? So we have to look at slavery in the Semitic point of view, and not the Western modern philosophy. And I say Semitic because in the Bible we see that the circumcision, the pact for Bani Israel applies to the boys, sons and grandsons of Sayyidina Ibrahim, and the boys that they buy. So when you buy a male, it's part of your tribe, and the pact for Bani Israel applies to them. So they're also Bani Israel, right? Because they're by like the concept of wala, that's a Semitic idea that you're if you're a slave of this tribe, you're part of that tribe. We will defend you and you will be loyal to us. Right? We will protect you and you're part of us. If somebody harms you, that harm is harming us. So wallahi ma min ahadin, it makes sense, Sa'mar? Yeah. And so similarly, it's like in the Bible, like if you think about, we're going to understand, that God the Father, but you don't see that the Father ever tells the Son off, right? So you're a modern 21st century kid. You're like, my parents didn't tell me off. I tell my parents off, right? Say, Dad, you're such a loser. Why'd you do that? And he's like, oh man, you're true, haha, right? So you have this relationship where it's kind of like a sibling relationship, right? Whereas in the Bible, if that's true, it's saying, hey, your dad cares for you, your dad loves you, your dad punishes you. But you can come back to your dad, right? If you mess up, you can come back to your dad and say, I'm sorry. Right? That's the analogy, right? So when we lose the paradigm, we don't even know what the analogy is. Right? When your dad doesn't, your dad will tell you off and you get in trouble with your dad. Right? When that doesn't exist, it's kind of confusing. Similarly, like what does that mean? Translate, there's nobody who is more jealous about his slave, male or female, committing zina. Like what does that even mean? So it means that just like if you had your daughter and you found out your daughter was somebody slept with your daughter and you're like, oh, that's taken away from you. Similarly, in the Jahili period, your female slave commits zina, it's taken something away from you, it hurts you. Don't do that. Or even your male slave, right? So we are like that. So, i.e., Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, don't take something away from yourself because it's almost like taking something away. And I get angry just like you would get angry if your female slave committed zina, right? Or your male slave committed zina. You'll be angry with them because it's right. I'm also angry with you because you've dishonored yourself and dishonored me. Right. لو تعلمون ما أعلم لبكيتم كثيرا ولا ضحكتم قليلا. Right. May Allah forgive us all. حدثنا محمد بن حسين بن طرخان قال حدثنا أبو حذيفة قال حدثنا زائدة. Right. So now we're going to, this is Iraqi. Right. That's that same Zaida that we just saw in the list of the students of A'mash. A'mash Iraqi proper. Right. So this is what Imam Malik meant. Imam Malik, when he speaks about Hisham ibn Urwa, he said he used to quote random hadiths. The Iraqis would come to us with hadiths that were from Hisham that were random. Because why? Hisham, when the last time he went to Iraq, he started to open up and narrate things that were not correct necessarily. Right? So here you come quote this hadith to Imam Malik, you're like, Habibi, I am the student of Hisham bin Urwa. Go tell me what some Iraqi told me that he said. Right? It's like random, right? It's like a Hanafi quoting to you about Shafi fiqh. Like, mm-hmm. This doesn't really mean that much to you. You're not really interested. Right? So this is an Iraqi chain going back to Hisham ibn Urwa. And Fatima bint al-Mundhir, so that's like that's his mum, I think. So I think that's the wife of Urwa, or something like that. Fatima bint al-Mundhir is like the wife of Urwa and Zubayr, right? And Asma binti Abi Bakr, right? So this is all family basically. Hisham ibn Urwa so Asma is Urwa's mum. So I don't know who Fatima is. I think it's like the wife. I think Fatima is the wife of Urwa. So basically Hisham narrating from his mum from his grandma, something like that. أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أمر بالعتاقة في كسوف الشمس. He said, when that happens, set slaves free. Right? And subhanAllah, there's a really random thing that happened here. I was at this bird shop, okay, in Malaysia, and there's this cage with like 200 Bint al-Mundhir ibn Zubair ibn Awam. The Zoj, so he's narrating from his own wife then, right? Is that correct? Fatima bint Mundhir is not his mom, he's narrating from his own wife. Is that correct? Zawjat Hisham and Awra. Okay, there we go. Jazakum khair. So he narrates from his own wife, from his own grandma. It's a bit odd, isn't it? And that's his cousin. So Fatima bint al-Mundhir ibn Zubair ibn Awam. So Zubair ibn Awam is his grandfather. So he's married to his cousin. Is that right? Yeah. So Zubair ibn Awam is married to Asma. Yeah. So they have the same grandparents. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So anyway, this thing about setting people free is so I'm at this bird shop and there was this really weird cage with these tiny little birds in it, like 200, maybe 300 little birds in it, really, really small. They're like the size of a and so the Chinese, they have this thing that whenever you feel sad, what you do is you go and set birds free. So basically, you don't actually take those birds home. You go and you basically pay for those birds, and then they set them free, and that's kind of like you have a problem. Like that's the start of Haja, like set birds free, right? And so yeah, it's kind of random. But here, this is what they do: is amara bil ataqa is you set slaves free. Khalas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. So the slave has come to you through war. Okay, and he's a POW, and he's there to learn about Islam and to serve you and to learn his lesson. And then it's like, okay, now you benefit from it because it's like zakat. Whenever it's something you've broken your oath, you've said something you shouldn't have said, you've done this, you killed somebody. What do? Set somebody free. Okay? So it's your means to Jannah. Okay, and he says حدثنا أبو سعيد الأشج عن أثام بن علي قال حدثنا هشام عن فاطمة عن أسماء قالت كنا نؤمر بالعتاقة في كسوف الشمس. Right, he's mentioning the same chain here. Right, so interesting. Imam Malik does not narrate that hadith. So ما جاء في صلاة الاستسقاء حدثنا عبد الله بن محمد بن عمرو الغزي قال حدثنا الفريابي. So Firyab, Ab, right? You use that word. You speak Urdu, Ammar? Ammar, you speak Urdu? Not sure I can say I speak it. My family does. Anyway, so Ab in Farsi means water. So Panjab, the 5 rivers. Ab. So Firyab. This is in Central Asia. Okay. قال حدثنا سفيان, most likely Sufyan ibn Uyayna, عن هشام ibn إسحاق ibn عبد الله ibn Kinana, عن أبيه, not sure what this person is at all, عن ابن عباس أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم خرج في استسقاء فلم يخطب خطبكم هذه خرج متضرعا متبذلا فصلى ركعتين كما يصلي العيد. Right? So Salat al-Istisqa. So what does it mean? He didn't do the khutbah as you do it. Not sure what the wajh shabah is. Right? So he didn't do your khutbah or didn't do it in the same way that you do it. Something like that. But otherwise, there is a khutbah for the Salat al-Istisqa. حدثنا ابن مقرئ, we've seen him before. قال حدثنا سفيان عن عبد الله بن أبي بكر. That's a different one, right? Length, okay. عن عباد بن تميم عن عمه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم خرج إلى المصلى فاستسقى فاستقبل القبلة وقلب رداءه وصلى ركعتين. Right, he turned to the point is here, then he prayed 2 rak'ahs and he turned his clothes inside out. حدثنا محمد بن يحيى قال حدثنا عبد الرزاق الصنعاني عن معمر بن راشد, right, عن الزهري عن عباد بن تميم. So this is the same hadith, right? عن عمه قال خرج رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بالناس يستسقي فصلى بهم ركعتين وجهر بالقراءة. There we go. وحول رداءه ورفع يديه ودعا واستسقى واستقبل القبلة. Right, so the same hadith there. حدثنا okay, we're going to stop here inshallah ta'ala. Yes, let's continue from here. Okay, وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Good job, Ammar. It was good today. So you're going to learn a lot, right? Flicking through Tahdhib, right? You just learn lots of things. In fact, I honestly believe you won't understand anything until you do that. Like you learn lots of, like, the criticisms they mention, these kind of things is really, really useful, right? And so try and write some things down here and there, because what you will do now is you'll start to accumulate certain concepts in your head, and then in 5 years you're like, oh yeah, there's a concept, but where's a quote? You know what I'm saying? So like when you find a key nugget, like key piece, just write it down. So I have to my left here these little things, collections I've had for the last 10 years, like key quotes. And there were many key quotes that, so again, you in your mind trying to kind of like understand things on a deep level. When that clicks, that's based on a bunch of quotes, but you don't have them anymore. So you're like, oh man, I got to go back and find them. I'm like, where is that? And sometimes there's a concept that you've actually forgot the specifics of it. So it's actually really useful, like with key things that come up, like, oh, that's really important, right? Again, you can't write everything down and you can't do all of those things, but like, key things like, oh, it mentioned the key circle of, mention that, who is it? So mention the key circle of Zuhri, right? And Yunus was one of them, right? But like to quote that down, where is it? This, so-and-so said it, it's here, Tahdhib, under this name, which print? Done. And you just have it there. And then over 10, 20 years, you have all these key quotes. And then you're giving a presentation, so like I do. And I'm like, where on earth am I going to find that point that I know in my head? You know what I'm saying? And so it's really useful. And it's a problem when you don't have it. Like, oh my God, that's a problem. Like I really miss, like I should have written more, And they say, to write a book, you have to read 200 books. So you imagine like 200 books create these key quotes that put together a book. I know it's like it's actually a lot of hard work. Wow. Okay, so